Americans love the open road, but some travelers clearly expected a five-star resort experience in the middle of a Nebraska cornfield. Today, we are counting down 55 of the most brain-melting, absurd, and hilariously stupid complaints ever filed by people who found the great outdoors a bit too inconvenient. From demanding a manager for the sun to being offended by gas station sushi, these stories prove that common sense is a rare luxury on the highway. Let's see just how weird the American road trip can get. 1. Imagine pulling over in the middle of the Mojave Desert and being genuinely offended that the gas station sushi does not taste like it was prepared by a Michelin-star chef in Tokyo. One traveler actually left a scathing review because the spicy tuna roll he bought next to a diesel pump was slightly lukewarm. He called it a culinary betrayal and a threat to public health. Sir, you are at a place that sells bait, lottery tickets, and industrial-strength jerky. If you wanted fine dining, maybe do not look for it next to the windshield washer fluid. 2. Imagine being so wealthy or out of touch that you get angry at a vending machine for not accepting a $100 bill. A guy at a rest stop in Kentucky spent 10 minutes kicking a machine because it would not break his large bill for a 50-cent pack of gum. He later complained to the Department of Transportation that the machines were discriminatory against people with high-value currency. The machine only takes quarters, buddy. It is not a branch of the Federal Reserve. 3. Some people find a way to be annoyed by safety features. A traveler staying in a camper near a gas station in New Mexico complained that the station's floodlights were too bright and ruined his view of the constellations. He actually asked the night clerk to turn off all the external security lights so he could take better photos of the moon. Sorry, but most people prefer not being robbed in the dark over your aesthetic Instagram shot. Is your social media feed more important than public safety? 4. There is a specific type of person who walks into a roadside bathroom in rural Alabama and expects a heated bidet and lavender-scented towels. One Yelp reviewer gave a gas station 1 star because the lighting in the men's room was not flattering for his selfies. He complained that the fluorescent bulbs made him look washed out and pale while he was trying to document his journey. Most of us are just happy if there is toilet paper and the door actually locks, but this guy wanted a professional studio setup for his mid-trip pit stop. 5. A traveler in California was disgusted that the person pumping his gas, yes, some places still do that, was wearing a stained t-shirt instead of a professional uniform. He complained to the owner that the lack of a tie and blazer made him feel like the gas was lower quality. He argued that if he is paying $50 for a tank, he deserves a high-end service experience. It is a gas station in the middle of a heat wave, not a 5-star hotel in Paris. Relax and just let the man do his job. 6. We have reached a level of entitlement where people want to speak to the manager of the weather. A tourist visiting Death Valley in the middle of July complained to a gas station attendant that it was way too hot outside. She demanded to know why there were no outdoor cooling fans or misting stations along the main highway. It is literally called Death Valley, not Refreshing Breeze Valley. If you cannot handle the heat, maybe do not drive into one of the hottest places on the planet during the hottest month of the year and expect air-conditioned air. 7. Road trips are about experiencing new things, unless you are the guy who complained that a gas station in Maine did not serve authentic Tex-Mex breakfast burritos. He was outraged that his only options were lobster rolls and clam chowder. He claimed the lack of salsa options was a form of regional discrimination against Southerners. It is almost like different parts of the country have different cultures and food. If you want a taste of San Antonio while you are staring at the Atlantic Ocean, you might be the primary source of your own frustration. 8. Modern technology has made us incredibly lazy, and nothing proves it like the man who left a nasty review for a gas station because he had to manually pull the door open. He argued that in the 21st century, every commercial establishment should have motion-activated sliding doors. He claimed the physical exertion of opening the door ruined the flow of his road trip and made him sweat. We are officially at peak laziness when a 2-pound aluminum door feels like a gym workout. How do people like this even survive a simple walk to the mailbox? 9. People from the East Coast often forget how massive the West really is. One traveler complained to a tourism board in Nevada that the gas stations were too far apart. He felt it was unfair that he had to drive for 2 hours without seeing a Starbucks or a McDonald's. He suggested the state should subsidize more businesses in the middle of the desert just for his convenience. Should the government pay businesses to exist in the middle of nowhere just to satisfy a tourist's craving for a latte? Or is part of the adventure actually being alone? 10. You would think the Grand Canyon would be immune to criticism, but you would be wrong. A visitor once complained that the hole in the ground was just too big and took too long to look at. He felt the park should install an elevator or a high-speed train to take people to the bottom because hiking was too much work. He literally called one of the 7 natural wonders of the world a giant waste of space and a logistical nightmare. Some people look at a masterpiece of geology and only see a hurdle to their next nap. 11. A traveler in Utah once filed a complaint because the scenery surrounding a gas station was far too beautiful. He claimed the majestic red rocks distracted him so much that he forgot to put the nozzle back, leading to a small spill. In his mind, it was the station's fault for not having a more boring parking lot. Why should a business be blamed for being located in a scenic area? Do you think some people are just looking for a reason to be mad at the world? 12. Imagine driving through a remote mountain pass in Montana and getting angry that your TikTok will not load. One teenager's parent filed a complaint against a local rest stop because the free Wi-Fi did not reach the bathroom stalls. They argued that digital access is a human right, even when you are 50 miles from the nearest town. It seems some people value a strong signal more than the fresh mountain air. If you cannot go 20 minutes without scrolling, is it even a vacation? 13. Farm life is not for everyone, but one city dweller took it to a bizarre level. After stopping at a rural Kansas gas station, she complained to the manager about the excessive smell of nature, specifically the nearby cattle. She suggested the station should install giant industrial air fresheners to mask the scent of the local economy. Clearly, she expected the great outdoors to smell like a vanilla-scented candle. Realistically, what did she think a farm state was going to smell like? 14. Speed is usually a good thing at a gas pump, but not for one confused customer in Ohio. This individual was furious because the high-flow pump finished filling his tank before he could finish choosing a bag of chips inside. He claimed the stress of rushing ruined his snack-buying experience and demanded a discount for his mental anguish. Most people want to get back on the road quickly, but this guy wanted the gas station to operate at a snail's pace just for his convenience. 15. We have all seen those yellow deer crossing signs, but one woman took them way too literally. She called a local highway department to complain that the signs were placed in high-traffic areas. Her logic was that the state should move the signs to safer and quieter areas so the deer would know to cross there instead. It is hard to tell if she was joking or if she truly believed deer have a firm grasp of traffic laws and road signage. 16. Truck stop coffee is a staple of the American road trip, but one traveler found it a bit too authentic. He complained that the coffee tasted like it had been sitting there for hours and that the cashier was too much of a character. Apparently, he wanted a corporate and soulless experience with a barista who knew his name. When you are at a truck stop at 3 in the morning, you should expect grit, not a personalized latte art masterpiece. 17. At 4 o'clock in the morning, most people are just trying to survive, but one customer in Maine was offended that the cashier did not engage in high-energy small talk. He complained that the worker looked tired and was not enthusiastic enough about his purchase of a gallon of milk. Expecting a Broadway-level performance from a guy working the graveyard shift for minimum wage is a special level of entitlement. If you want a parade and a cheers, maybe do not do your shopping while the rest of the world is asleep. 18. One man was so upset about the price of gas in a remote part of Death Valley that he accused the station of geographic bullying. He knew there was not another pump for 60 miles, but he still spent 20 minutes arguing that the price should match his local station back in New Jersey. Transporting fuel to the middle of a desert costs money. but logic is often the first thing to evaporate in the heat. Do you think remote gas stations are heroes or just price gougers? 19. Automatic car washes are meant to be a convenience, but one driver in Florida was offended by the violent nature of the brushes. He complained that the machine was attacking his car and that the water was disturbingly loud. He wanted a car wash that was gentler and more meditative for his vehicle's emotional well-being. At what point did we start treating inanimate objects like they have feelings that can be hurt by some soapy bristles and spinning foam? 20. Some people hate the silence of the countryside. A traveler in rural Wyoming complained that the lack of traffic noise made it impossible for him to sleep in his camper. He actually asked the gas station owner if they could leave a tractor running all night to provide some city-style white noise. It turns out that for some, the sounds of nature are far more annoying than a honking taxi or a distant siren. Does peace and quiet actually scare some people? 21. A guy in New Jersey was actually offended that a gas station smelled like gasoline. He filed a complaint with the city, calling it an olfactory assault and suggesting the station should use industrial scents to smell like a bakery. My friend, you are literally standing over a massive underground tank of flammable chemicals. If the area started smelling like fresh-baked croissants, that would be a much bigger problem for your safety. Why do people expect a dirty industrial zone to smell like a high-end candle shop? 22. One health-conscious traveler was genuinely shocked to find that a gas station in the middle of a Nevada desert did not stock organic avocado toast or cold-pressed green juice. She left a one-star review claiming the station was a nutritional desert and a hazard to her wellness routine. Look, if you are looking for superfoods next to a pile of cigarette cartons and beef jerky, your expectations might be the problem. A gas station is for fuel, not a spiritual awakening through expensive sourdough. 23. Driving through the Midwest can be a test of patience, but one woman actually called the highway patrol to complain that Nebraska was too flat and boring. She claimed the lack of scenery was a safety hazard because it was hypnotizing her into a forced nap. She wanted the state to install some artificial hills or interesting statues to keep her awake. Is it really the government's job to build mountains just because your playlist is trash? How much boredom should a state be responsible for before it becomes a crime in your eyes? 24. Driving through the Florida Everglades is basically a war against insects, but one tourist was horrified that his car got dirty. He complained to a gas station attendant that the local bugs were too juicy and that the state should spray the entire highway to prevent splatters. He felt it was unfair that he had to use a squeegee more than once an hour. Have we really reached a point where we expect the government to exterminate every bug in nature just to keep our paint jobs shiny? 25. A customer in Texas once demanded a refund for the air he bought for his tires because he claimed it was poor quality. He argued that since the gas station was near a busy intersection, the air he was pumping into his wheels was full of exhaust fumes and would rot his rubber from the inside. He wanted filtered mountain fresh air for his SUV. It is hard to imagine the level of boredom required to worry about the purity of the air inside your tires. Do you think some people just enjoy being difficult? 26. National parks bring out the weirdest expectations in people who are used to controlled environments. A tourist at Yellowstone once filed a formal complaint because the bears would not come closer to his minivan for a photo op. He was frustrated that the Park Service had not trained the grizzlies to be more photogenic for the visitors. He actually suggested that the rangers should put out honey near the road to guarantee a sighting. It is a wilderness, not a petting zoo, and those bears are busy being bears, not influencers looking for a brand collaboration. 27. We all hate construction, but one woman in Pennsylvania took it out on a poor cashier who was just trying to sell her a soda. She demanded a full refund for her gas because there was a detour 5 miles down the road that added 10 minutes to her trip. She claimed the station was part of a conspiracy to make people drive longer and buy more fuel. It is a special kind of main character syndrome to think a construction crew is working just to spite your specific commute. 28. A tech-averse senior in Georgia once filed a formal complaint because a gas station updated its pumps to touchscreens. He argued that the screens were too futuristic and that the bright colors were an assault on his senses. He missed the days when you just squeezed a handle and watched mechanical numbers flip over. While nostalgia is great, calling a digital screen a tool of the devil seems a bit extreme for a Friday afternoon pit stop at a local convenience store. 29. Many roadside stops have a resident cat or dog, but one visitor in Oregon was absolutely livid about a friendly golden retriever napping near the entrance. She complained that the dog looked too happy and was clearly a distraction for drivers who needed to focus on their fuel levels. She suggested that all animals should be banned from the property to maintain a professional atmosphere. How miserable do you have to be to find a happy dog offensive? Who even hates a friendly golden retriever? 30. A traveler in Tennessee was so offended by the smell of a gas station bathroom that he claimed it gave him a traumatic memory. He was upset that it did not smell like a high-end spa and complained that the soap was a generic brand instead of something artisanal. He wanted the manager to compensate him for the emotional distress of using a standard public toilet. If you want a luxury bathroom experience, maybe do not stop at a place that advertises the cheapest diesel in 3 counties. 31. Driving west at sunset is a classic struggle, but one man in Kansas actually called the police because the sun was in his eyes. He claimed the government should install giant visors over the interstate to prevent temporary blindness. Instead of wearing sunglasses like a normal human, he wanted a multi-billion-dollar engineering project to shade his commute. It takes a massive ego to think the star at the center of our solar system should dim its light just so you can see the road to Wichita a bit better. 32. Rest stops are full of wildlife, but a woman in Virginia once demanded a refund from a vending machine because a squirrel stared at her aggressively. She claimed the animal was part of a coordinated gang of rodents designed to intimidate travelers into dropping their snacks. She wanted the state to hire animal security to keep the picnic areas free of judgmental gazes from the local wildlife. If you are being bullied by a 4-pound squirrel, maybe the problem is not the squirrel, but your own survival instincts. 33. Have you ever noticed the tiny 9/10 of a cent at the end of gas prices? One guy in Illinois spent an hour screaming at a teenager behind the counter because he could not pay that fraction of a cent in physical currency. He insisted the station was stealing from him and demanded the manager produce a 1/10 of a cent coin to settle the debt. It is a weird marketing trick, sure, but is it really worth a mental breakdown over a fraction of a penny? Do you think gas stations should just round up and stop the confusion? 34. A traveler in North Carolina was so disgusted by the lack of gluten-free options in a rusty vending machine that he left a 3-page letter of complaint. He was offended that his only choices were stale potato chips and chocolate bars from the 1990s. Finding a health food store in the middle of a swamp is a tall order, but this guy felt like it was a personal attack on his lifestyle. Sometimes, you just have to accept that a bag of salty pretzels is the best the universe can offer you at midnight. 35. Those spinning hot dogs at gas stations are a cultural icon, but one woman in Ohio was horrified that they were not handcrafted by an artisan butcher. She complained that the rollers were rotating too slowly, which she believed was making the meat dizzy and ruining the texture. It is a tube of processed mystery meat, not a fine steak, but she expected a culinary masterpiece for $2. Honestly, if you are brave enough to eat a gas station hot dog, should you really be complaining about its spinning speed? 36. Music can set the mood, but a tourist in Louisiana was furious that a gas station was playing local jazz instead of top 40 hits. He complained that the music made him feel like he was in a movie, and it was too distracting for his morning coffee run. He wanted the manager to switch to something more corporate and neutral. Imagine going to one of the most culturally rich states in the country and being annoyed that it does not sound like a generic elevator in a Chicago office building. 37. Washington State is famous for its rain, yet a visitor from California was outraged when it drizzled during his road trip. He filed a complaint with the tourism office claiming the damp weather had ruined the aerodynamics of his sports car and made his leather seats feel humid. He actually asked if the state had considered building a glass roof over the scenic highways. Since when did we start expecting nature to stay dry just for our leather interior? Would you support a giant dome over your favorite city to stop the rain? 38. An angry tourist in Arizona complained that a gas station's ice was way too aggressive. He argued that the cubes were too large and kept hitting him in the face while he tried to drink his soda. He actually asked the clerk if they could sand down the edges of the ice to make it smoother for consumption. This is the kind of person who makes you realize why there are warning labels on literally everything. Is there any limit to what people will find to whine about? 39. A couple driving through the Texas Panhandle complained to their rental car company that the desert was too dusty. Their white SUV ended up covered in a fine layer of brown sand after 5 minutes of driving, which they found unacceptable. This led them to suggest that the state should pave the shoulders of every road to keep the dust down. It is the desert, folks. Dirt is kind of the main feature. Does it ever amaze you how people can travel to a place and then be shocked that the place actually exists as advertised? 40. Historic gas stations are often charming, but one traveler in New Mexico called the police because a vintage station looked suspicious. He was upset that the pumps were old-fashioned and that the building did not look like a modern glass cube. He claimed the aesthetic was a red flag for a horror movie scenario and demanded an escort out of town. Some people see history and character, while others just see a set for a slasher film. Are we so used to corporate uniformity that anything with a little age feels like a threat? 41. A man in rural Colorado blamed a gas station clerk because his GPS led him down a muddy dirt road that ruined his tires. He claimed the station should have posted a sign warning people that the digital map was wrong. It is a bold move to blame a local business for a multi-billion-dollar satellite system's mistake. If your phone tells you to drive into a lake, do you follow the blue line or use your eyes? Are we becoming too dependent on technology to even think for ourselves? 42. Route 66 is the ultimate American road trip, but one tourist from New York was livid that it didn't look like a modern highway. He complained that the cracked pavement and neon signs were outdated and made the country look poor. He actually suggested the government should tear down the vintage motels and build a luxury shopping mall instead. Some people just do not understand that the history is the whole point. Do you think we should preserve these old icons or replace them with something more efficient and modern? 43. Stopping at a rest area in Oklahoma at night is usually peaceful, unless you are the woman who tried to sue the state because the crickets were too loud. She claimed the chirping was a form of noise pollution and prevented her from having a deep, meditative sleep in her sedan. She even asked a park ranger if they could spray the grass with silencing chemicals to hush the bugs. It is an insect lady, not a rock concert. Should nature have a volume knob just to satisfy people who cannot handle the silence? 44. A millennial traveler in Montana was genuinely confused when he walked into a visitor center and was handed a paper map. He complained to the staff that the offline tablet was broken because he could not pinch to zoom on the paper. He actually left a review saying the state was behind the times and needed to update its physical brochures to be more interactive. It is called paper, and it has worked for centuries. Are we actually losing the ability to function without a glowing screen in front of our faces? 45. One brave soul in Georgia decided to buy a prepackaged egg salad sandwich from a fridge that looked like it had not been cleaned since the 90s. He then had the audacity to complain that the sandwich tasted suspiciously like eggs. He wanted a refund because the texture was too real, and he was expecting something more processed and predictable. When you gamble on gas station seafood or eggs, you are basically signing a waiver with your own digestive system. Is gas station food a hidden gem or a death wish? 46. A man in Iowa was outraged when he pulled into a massive rest stop and found other people already there. He He complained to a highway official that the presence of other travelers was an invasion of his privacy and ruined his solo journey of self-discovery. He suggested that rest stops should have a reservation system so he could have the entire facility to himself for 30 minutes. Imagine being so entitled that you think a public facility funded by taxpayers should be your private VIP lounge just for your ego. 47. We have all dealt with bad smells, but one driver in Wisconsin was upset that the air near a gas station did not smell like the local cheese. He complained that since he was in the dairy state, every public space should have a faint aroma of cheddar or mozzarella. Instead, he was stuck with the smell of asphalt and exhaust. It is a creative idea, but do we really want the entire world to smell like a giant charcuterie board? How far should a state go to brand its own atmosphere for tourists? 48. The Rocky Mountains are famous for their height, but one tourist was so bothered by the altitude that he demanded the Park Service level out the roads. He complained that the constant elevation changes were making his ears pop and it was physically aggressive toward his body. He wanted a flat highway through the mountains so he could enjoy the view without the discomfort of physics. If you want a flat road, maybe just stay in Florida and look at a picture of a mountain on your phone instead. 49. Wyoming is known for wind that can literally blow a truck over, but one traveler was personally offended by the breeze. He filed a complaint against the state for unsafe weather conditions because the wind was making his car's fuel efficiency drop. He felt the state should build giant windbreaks along the entire length of the interstate to protect his gas mileage. It is nature, not a wind tunnel at a car factory. How much control do people think the government actually has over the literal wind? 50. Some people are so used to city life that nature actually terrifies them. A family on a road trip through New Mexico complained to their hotel manager that the night sky was too dark and had too many stars, which made them feel small and insignificant. They asked if the local council could turn on more streetlights to drown out the Milky Way. When did we become so disconnected from the universe that the actual galaxy feels like an inconvenience? Do you prefer a smoggy gray sky over the literal beauty of the cosmos just to feel better? 51. A tourist visiting the Carlsbad Caverns once filed a formal complaint because he could not livestream his walk through the caves. He argued that the government should install signal boosters deep underground so people do not lose their connection to the digital world. Apparently, being surrounded by millions of years of geological history is not enough to keep some people entertained for an hour. Is our constant need for digital validation turning us into people who cannot appreciate a cave without checking their notifications? 52. Driving the Pacific Coast Highway is a dream for many, but one traveler was genuinely annoyed by the crashing waves. This individual left a review for a seaside rest area, claiming the ocean was too loud and was interfering with his podcast. He suggested that the state should install sound-dampening walls along the coast to make the drive more peaceful. Imagine complaining about the literal sound of the Pacific Ocean because you cannot hear a true crime story. Do you think we have become too addicted to controlled environments? 53. A confused traveler in Arizona once called the State Department because the "Welcome to New Mexico" sign looked suspicious. He claimed the font was too cheerful and he suspected it was a trap set by a cult to lure drivers off the main road. The poor guy refused to cross the border until a highway patrol officer physically escorted him. It is a sign, not an invitation to a horror movie plot. Why does every little thing on the road feel like a conspiracy to some people? Does the desert sun just melt people's logic? 54. An incredibly entitled driver in Florida once demanded a valet at a tiny two-pump gas station in the middle of a swamp. He was offended that he had to step out into the humidity and actually touch the pump himself. When the cashier explained they did not have a valet, the man threatened to sue for physical exhaustion and emotional damage. Some folks treat a $5 fill-up like it is a red carpet event. At what point does basic self-sufficiency become an unbearable burden for a person? 55. Ending our list is the legend who drove 300 miles in the wrong direction and blamed the highway signs for being too passive. He argued that the signs should have been more aggressive and flashed bright red lights to tell him he was heading toward Canada instead of Mexico. He wanted the Department of Transportation to pay for his wasted gas and a hotel room. If you cannot tell north from south, maybe you should just let the bus driver take the wheel. Who is really to blame here, the signs or the driver? We have finally reached the end of this tour through the absolute peak of human entitlement on the American highway. It is truly impressive how some people can look at a natural wonder or a simple gas pump and find a reason to be personally offended. What is the most ridiculous thing you have ever heard someone complain about at a gas station? Drop your stories in the comments below and let the roasting begin. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the chaos and subscribe so you never miss our next look at the world's most absurd stories. See you in the next one.